That's what I think. I can't find Priya or...
Neither can I. I'm going to step into the background.
Okay, yeah, Cindy, let us start, and as and when, if we find Priya and Sarkova join, we can upgrade them. I welcome to all of you for today's webinar, the Learners Webinar. I mean, just to clarify, since we have 3 separate webinars in the month on the 2nd, 3rd, and the 4th Wednesdays, for many people it may be confusing, but in general, the way that we have scheduled that is this last Wednesday that we have today would be for current learners or even whoever is participating who may be past learners as well, or even credential. It's going to address primarily the core competencies and sort of mentoring sessions on core competencies. Whereas a second Wednesday is usually on more advanced topics, which may or may not necessarily be covered in your curriculum. From April, we are planning to go into systemic coaching. And the third, the one in between, which is on the 3rd Wednesday, is usually a colloquium where we invite people from outside, occasionally some of our senior coaches, to come and present on very specialized subjects. Like last week, we had John Serrao, Ujjwal, and Bhaskar, who came and presented on the Theory U, which is finding a big spot as far as coaching is concerned. So today in the Learner Webinar, we have, I think Sarkova is there on the panel, and Priya, hopefully she's somewhere around. No, I don't see her as yet. Probably she would join. 2 of them, and Sarkova especially, she's working with Priya. She will be presenting, Sarka, sorry, it's not Sarkova, Sarka. She would be presenting on Timothy Galloway's In a Game. I mean, Cindy, if you want to add anything, please add now, and then we'll ask Sarka to present. Sarka, you have roughly about 10 minutes for your presentation, and after that, we will have another 5 to 10 minutes of discussions. And then Cindy will be taking over the session to move on to competencies which are related to In a Game, concept or anything else that audience requires. Cindy?
Okay. Is it Saka, right? How do you say it? Saka. Okay. You
Hello.
unmute.
Yeah, I unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely. So welcome to the Learner webinar. Lovely to have you here.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to present. Hello, Cindy.
Okay. So I know Priya was going to partner with you, and I'm not sure whether she's in the participants. Rama, are you checking? Okay.
Sorry, she's not good.
For now, Saka, do you mind taking over and starting your presentation? Okay.
Sure. Thanks. So let me just share the screen.
Yeah, you see the green button at the bottom, Sarka?
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
So can you see it? Black. I hope you can see it.
No, we can't at the moment. I don't know. There's just a black screen.
Yes. All right. So the presentation is starting. Okay.
Sure. Okay.
I hope you can hear me well. If anything occurs, please let me know, and I will welcome your comments, questions after, as Ram indicated. So let's start. The book is called The Inner Game of Tennis, and was written by Mr. Timothy Golby in the 70s. And I'm really happy that this book was assigned to me by Priya, because it was in many ways eye-opening. I really enjoyed, and I hope you will enjoy the presentation. So the book is not about tennis only, although the tennis is in the title, as you will see later on as I continue. My presentation structure is the following. I would like to start with talking about the inner game as Golby explains the concept. Then I would like to move to the second part, and that is the art of concentration, which I believe is really critical to the inner game. And at the end, I would like to include some provoking thoughts for the learners, for everyone to have their impression, and wrap up on again the inner game. So let's move on. Before talking about the inner game, I would just add a few words about the author for those who haven't heard about Mr. Golby or who haven't read any of his books. Mr. Golby was born in the 30s and became active in the 60s. He's originally a tennis pro, a teacher, and a competitor, who then became author of a series of books called The Inner Game of, and you can find, for example, Tennis or Work, which I believe is also on our colloquium. So Mr. Golby was connected to Harvard University, and later on in the 70s he learned about meditation and some yogi practices, which had great influence on his life and work. He's also one of the pioneers of coaching as such, alongside other great personalities of that time. So Mr. Golby then became a lecturer to business leaders later in his life, and a successful book author. To go on with the presentation. The first things we have to do is to discern between the terms the inner game, which suggests the opposite, the outer game. So my question for all of the listeners, how do you understand these two concepts. Have a question for yourself. And let me add what it means for Mr. Galway. So the inner game is what we play inside our minds every time we want to achieve something or learn something, practice something. And the outer game is the outer reality, the conditions we live in, the rules given by the society, and we try to succeed in the games. For Mr. Galway, what is more important is the inner game, to win the inner game, and that is his own opinion. I'm moving to the content of inner game. Mr. Galway suggests we master what happens in our minds when we learn something, because mastering the inner game allows one to learn naturally and thus most effectively whatever one sets his mind onto. It can be coaching, it can be tennis, whatever else. As we are coaches, a lot of us beginning our careers, we are very much in the learning of the process, and there are many dangers in the process, the ego traps and whatever happens in our minds. So I suggest we all read the inner game and take inspiration from that. Mr. Galway highlights the natural learning process. What is it about? It's something that is innate to us. As children, we learn how to walk, for example, and so this natural learning process operates within us if we allow it to. That's one important point from the book. This process
Saka,
is waiting.
Can I interrupt you, Saka? Can I interrupt you for a minute, please? There's a lot of noise. I'm not sure whether it's coming from your mic or your surroundings. Is there any way that we can manage the noise differently or soften it, or well, let me ask you, can you manage that differently right now?
I believe I'm sorry, I can't. It's the noise that is surrounding me, because I can't do it from my home, and the places I went to were all packed today. So I'm really sorry. I can just raise my voice if it helps. Let me know, or I can come closer.
Your voice is okay, Saka. Go on then. It's okay.
I hope you can understand me at least, because I can't do anything about the voice. I'm really, really sorry about it.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay, so to go on, back to the natural learning process is waiting to be discovered by those who do not know of its existence and its power. The natural learning process is willing to show what it can do when it's allowed to operate, when we don't interfere with the consciousness that is full of judgmental ego mind. So these last lines of this slide are quite critical as well. So I invite you to keep those words, as I will use them in the later parts of the presentation. Mr. Galway invented concepts of selves. Here we can see self number one, but altogether he invented 3 selves to understand the mental problems that are going on in the process of learning something. So how does he define those selves? The self number one, or the ego mind, is the teller, you can say, is the initial energy that gives us a direction to go, but also is full of judgmental about judging our actions. So in the process later on, it's not very useful to listen to self number one. You know, this is what happens when we coach and we realize that we didn't like something that we just said. That was the self one playing. What is more bigger and more important in the process is self number two, aka the doer. In the game of tennis, it's our body. In coaching, it's the coaching mind. Okay. Mr. Gowi suggests we concentrate more on self number two, giving floor to self number two in whatever we do, because self number two is able to act really well without the interference of self number one. Self number two is consciousness and unconsciousness. It's the memory, it's the nervous system that is ready to serve to our purpose. Together, integrated self one and self two can function in the service of the quest for the biggest self number three, which I'm going to talk about later on. I'll leave it here just like that, and I hope my explanation of self one and self two was understandable for you. Next, Mr. Gowi suggests we work towards quieting the mind. That is the learning process. And how does it actually look like when we try to quiet our mind in the learning process? So in the first place, there is a lot of maybe judgments and some decision, but Mr. Gowi suggests we observe the existing behavior and we skip the judgment. We leave it apart. We intentionally stop judging. So we work here with self number one, observing. Then next, when we try to learn something, we should ask ourselves to change. We should visualize and we should connect, feel with the result that we want to have. In here, Mr. Gowi suggests we, for example, expose ourselves to professionals in the field, to masters who inspire us and get the feeling how it is when they have reached this desired state. And we continue quieting the teller. Next, what comes next? It's trust. The biggest and the most important part of the process is trusting and letting it happen. So at one point of our learning process, we just let things happen. We just play the ball. We just coach. Because we trust ourselves and the process. Here, self number two gets more and more space and floor. What comes next are the results. Mr. Gowi suggests we observe those results with calmness. Our mind is calm, and observing results leads to calm observation of the process. And then the behavior becomes automatic. We come to be in the flow, and we get to the term which is called mindlessness. So these are the 4 steps of quieting the mind. Key steps to follow. Mastering the inner game means to master the art of relaxed concentration. I'm getting to the second part of the presentation, or mindlessness. I would like to offer you terms like childlikeness, self-forgetfulness, or even great pleasure. That is something that once experienced, the mind naturally wants to repeat that experience and get back to the mindless state and to the flow and the relaxed concentration state. So a little bit about concentration as such, because for Mr. Golbe is the art, is the supreme art, the art of concentration. He says, without learning how to concentrate, we cannot actually learn anything we want. That's what he says. So how to raise the concentration? Mr. Golbe suggests we take pure interest in what we want to achieve. Not judging, not assigning any qualities, not criticizing ourselves, just devote. And then connect with the object of our concentration. The more we connect, the more we concentrate, the more we become fascinated by the object of our learning, the greater the chance we master and we are really, really good at what we are doing. Eventually, we can become one with the object. That is what I like really much. Next, some circles for you to visualize concentration, how it raises. So first, Mr. Golbe uses the term awareness. We become aware of what we want to learn. Next, we pay attention to the object. So it's like it takes longer. We devote more time. The mind is more full. Next, concentration. It's still quite a broad concept. So if we want to work on concentration, we narrow it down to that one point of the circle, which is one point in concentration, and we become absorbed with the object of our concentration. Here, mindful changes to mindless because we became one with the object, and the energy flow is unlocked. Energy is flowing very freely, and we are performing very, very well. Next, the third part of my presentation is about some provoking thoughts. I will close my mouth, just let the statements by Mr. Golbe sit with you, have your impression, and I'll come back to close the presentation with something about self number 3. So about a minute for those statements. Sorry if I was too quick, but I should like to finish the presentation. I hope those statements were of some interest to you. So what we know up to now, we learned about self number 1, self number 2. We learned how to learn, right? According to Mr. Golbe. So what happens actually when self number 2 gets the floor and acts naturally? The more self number 2 practices, the more we practice this state, number 4, if you remember, the more we extend ourselves and we refine our mastery. Also, what we do is that we become closer and closer to something which Mr. Goldwig calls self number 3. And that it isn't something that is easily definable with words. If we try to define it with words, it could be said, if it's close to the saying like source of our potential, right? It could be defined as the seed from which we grow, from our lives grow from. So through playing the inner game and mastering the inner game, we may find our own way to experience self number 3 and meet face to face with the essence of our life. That is something very powerful to me. So I'm adding it intentionally here. The only requirement to get close to self number 3 is to have a consciousness that is aware of itself. And when we experience in our own way self number 3, we raise love and joy in our lives. So I'll leave it with here. I will leave it here, and thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, Saka.
I'm sorry for the noise. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. I think we got the most of it, so thank you. Priya, you want to check questions or ask some questions with Sakya?
So hi, Sharka. Good to see you here. And so I had one question for you, Sharka, and probably we can open it out to the rest of the participants. What is the inner game that coaches play?
All right, the way I understand
coaches,
it. Sorry, is it a question for me?
1 minute,
Yeah.
Saka, please. Coaches, don't you want to write type in your response on the chat? What is the inner game that coaches play? Go ahead, type. I'd like to hear your response, to see your responses. You can go ahead, Saka.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Cindy. Yes, while other coaches take their stance on the question, what I believe the inner game of coaches is that we are never finished as a coach. We are always developing, and there is always. The ego is quiet, but it's still there, and it can always interfere. It depends on the place we are in, how much care we give to ourselves. That all depends on whether we win or lose the inner game, which is the concentration, which is the absolute presence for the client in the moment, non-judgmental approach, and we may be losing in all these aspects one by one or just one, and that means we are not winning. So that is it for me. Thank you.
Lovely, Sharka. Just seeing the responses here, Cindy. So not judging ourselves and the client, but to be in the moment calm consciousness, which is attuned to the present. Some lovely responses. And I'm reminded of what Ram often says as a coach, you know, you trust the process, you trust the client, and you trust yourself. I think that's a beautiful space to be as a coach and as you go through the learning process of becoming a coach as well. Anything here that stands out for you, Cindy?
Yeah, I'd like to engage Ram with a question here. Ram, I know this is your topic, mindlessness. I'd like you to respond to this. Satya speaking about this concentration, you know, what do you call it? What concentration was it? Some point concentration.
One point.
Right? Yeah. So I know personally, when I am feeling in a very calm or mindless state, I'm not concentrating on much. Or there's nothing there that I'm concentrating on. If something shows up, it gets my attention, but there's nothing I'm concentrating on. So what's your response? I'd like to hear your response.
Okay, let me give my response in two separate ways. One is that I was also privileged to have been trained by Timothy Gallwey himself, first set of being an educator. And that was not so much on the inner game of tennis, but on the book that he has written later called The Inner Game of Work, which embodies many of the principles of what he talked about in Inner Game of Tennis. And one of the things, and it also so happened that I positioned myself at the dinner at the end of the day next to him in a pretty noisy bar, and I was trying to engage him in conversation, understand what he was saying. And he talked about all his experiences with meditation and yoga and everything. There were a couple of things that he said, which was very interesting. I read his Inner Game of Tennis 40 years ago, soon after it was written. And I did benefit tremendously from it. And so the entire focus of that book at that time were two things. One is about this concentration and other about visualization. So when I asked him, he said he has discarded both. And there was a reason why he discarded both. So even if one takes one of the latest editions of Inner Game of Tennis, if there is one, I'm not quite sure, but certainly the Inner Game of Work. To give you the background, what you said is absolutely correct. And somewhere, Sharka did use the word called the relaxed concentration, but then from there went to 1 point concentration. Those of you people here who might be familiar with the whole concept of yoga and Ashtanga yoga, the concentration is one of the lower level awarenesses, whether it's a concentration on the senses, which is called the dharana, or the concentration on a thought, which is called the dhyana. The highest level is complete disengagement. So the center point that actually should be reached is not 1 point concentration, but moving away from the concentration, which is complete disengagement. From pure practice, I mean, the theory, one might want to say whatever one can say, but a pure practice, having worked at it for now practically about 30 odd years, it's impossible that the more you concentrate, that you would become mindless. You have to let go at some point in time. You have to disengage. And that is really the lesson that Tim said that he reached later on. And it was one of those points which we discussed about. At that time, I didn't really have this word mindlessness in mind, as it were. That's one part of the answer. And we can talk about that concept, whether one agrees with it or not. Somebody has said about theory U, the consciousness and so on. Now, Gallwey talks...
1 minute, I'm going to ask our attendees a question here, our learners or attendees. What are you associating, what states are you associating with mindlessness? What are you feeling? When talking about mindlessness, what are you feeling? Are you feeling it's concentration, no concentration? Or What's going on with you as you associate this word with this word mindlessness? Please type on the chat box. We want to hear your responses. Murugan, what do you mean when you say consciousness? Explain that a bit. Write some words around what does that mean? Nice one. Nice, Murugan. Some lovely responses. Unconsciously aware. Good. Childlike. Your awareness. So Ram, these words that are coming up, when you speak of mindlessness, a lot of these words coming up from the attendees are what you make references to a lot, right?
Yeah, I agree with almost all of them. That is a state that one is talking about, where you completely disengage from the thought process itself. So it's like you're witnessing, you're observing, but you're not thinking, you're not the doer, you're not the thinker. And that is a state that you're looking at in a mindless state or a no mind state.
So go ahead, Ram, continue your thoughts when you were talking earlier on.
Yeah, no, I wanted to shift from here to something else about the inner game itself. One of the things that I found tremendously resonating when Tim taught us was not so much merely about his famous equation, which is performance equals potential minus interference, which is really, in a sense, if you look at it, is the inner game that coaches need to play. You are looking at the ultimate potential of the client, which is the unconditional positive regard that Rogers talks about, or the generative visioning that Thierry Yu talks about, Otto Scharmer talks about. However, that potential is not reached, and the performance is limited by blocks that we have, the limiting beliefs and so on. And that happens because of our conditioning. It is because of the unconscious incompetencies that we acquire. So the whole coaching process, the inner game of the coaching process is really, in very simple words, moving from the unconscious incompetence to finally the unconscious competence through the layers of unconscious, the conscious incompetence and conscious competence as well. So one of the things that Tim taught us was that before one really talks about the game itself, in any game, whatever the game that you wish to play, what are the rules of the game and what are your roles in that game? If you ask yourself that question, and if you also ask your clients that question, a lot can come out. For example, if you take tennis, the rule of the game is very simple. The rule to win, as it were. When we say the rule of the game, it's a rule to win. All that is necessary in tennis is to have the ball over the net, across the net, into a spot on the other side, which is designated, in such a manner that the opponent cannot return it to you. Then you score a point. It's as simple as that. In football, it's about putting the ball inside that box or whatever. In a different game, it might be that. So the other day I was with Priya and Subhash in their class, and I was telling them, in one of the clients that I coached soon after my program with Tim Galway was, there was a financial controller who I was coaching, and he had a lot of inner baggage. Many things about, he felt that he was not really getting along with his peers and all that kind of stuff. And so the basic question that I asked was, what is the rule of the game for you independently as a person. And then I asked him, what is the rule of the game for your team with whom you work? And what is the rule of the game for the organization? In a sense, this is what we talk about as systemic coaching. The rule of the game for the organization, of course, was to make money, to expand, to grow, and they had certain very, very clear targets in mind. And the team rules of the game was that they had to invest money, they had to grow, they can do all kinds of things. But his rule of the game as a financial controller, he was sitting on top of the treasure chest and making sure people don't spend the money. And that he believed was his true role. And then when we started talking about this, how his rule of the game is not aligned to the rule of the game of his team and the rule of the game of the system, something really happened, something broke out. And he said, aha, this is what I'm doing. And then, of course, he went on to do some remarkable things. So the whole inner game, I would like you to look at it slightly differently. First, try, if you're using it as a coach, look at it from these aspects of how do you understand your own rule and role vis-a-vis that of the team and the system. And then they will become much more clear about the games that they are playing. This guy was playing a game that the organization wants me to save the money and not spend it. Then he might as well be a moneylender, not working for a large company which is trying to expand. And the moment he understood what was blocking him, and the whole situation became different. So I leave it at this. The mindlessness need not necessarily be connected with this, but when a coach is looking at it non-judgmentally without getting involved in it, I think that automatically happens.
Yeah, I like to link to what's the rules of the game, no matter what the game is, because linking to coaching, it's like our core competency too, creating the coaching agreement. So that becomes the rules of the session or the interaction between coach and client. What does the client want from the session, and managing that throughout the session. So I like to link to the rules. Sakya, I'm going to hand over to you for some thoughts or comments showing up while Ram was talking. What do you want to say? Sakya? Oh, she's frozen.
Yeah.
Is she?
It looks like she's frozen because I don't hear her or there's no movement.
Yeah. Hear you?
Yeah, so Cindy, when you talked about core competency 2 on coaching agreement, I'm also reminded in the way Sharka had presented some of the key words that Tim Galloway used, which is to notice more. And, in our direct communication as competency CC7, we talk a lot about sharing and noticing. It's also part of creating awareness. And there was a lot also about being childlike and curious.
Also core competency.
Yeah.
Core competency for coaching presence, right?
Coaching, yeah.
Which references to dancing in the moment, childlike presence, and noticing. Lots of noticing, observing, that's Sarka raised.
Yeah. So I found that interesting because it is very, in so many ways, it seems to be aligned with the competencies that we speak about. Yeah. Sharka, are you there? Cindy had a question. No, maybe not.
Cindy, let me just add something from, I would, those of you, who are not fed up with reading all the stuff that we keep recommending to you, if you have a chance, read The Inner Game of Work by Tim Galloway. The way he came into fame as far as executive space was concerned, he was asked by one of the guys that he was coaching in tennis. He was so impressed by the methodology that he was using that he was one of the CXOs of AT&T, one of the largest firms at that point in time in the United States. And he said, why don't you come and do some work for us? And what they gave him was one of the toughest problems that they had, which was in those days, the telephones were not automatic. You had to go through an exchange, and there were operators who was handling it. And they were overloaded and very often they were stressed out. Many of them broke down, and because the whole system was still very nascent, there was a lot of customer discomfort which was being downloaded on them, as it were. It was very much a customer interactive kind of process, the telephone operator. So they gave him a group of about 30 telephone operators and said, okay, you practice whatever you need to, you use whatever your techniques, and make sure that their, what they call a customer satisfaction rating that they were doing at that point in time, improved from a terrible low of about 20% to something that they wanted to take it up to about 90%. One of the things that Timothy says that he did in that particular exercise was, so he asked them basically that you are the telephone operator, you are trying to put people in connect together. What is the rule of the game? What is it that you want to achieve in this particular case? They said, as simply as possible, as quickly as possible, we should be able to connect one another. And his question was, what is it that will make it evident to you? And they said, if the client is happy, and if they have a problem and we talk to us, and we are able to keep them happy. So he just asked them to focus on that. Are you making the client happy? Are you making the customer happy by listening to their voice tone, how they respond, rather than being shrill and whatever, abusive, etc., and so on. The experiment was so successful that within a period of about 2 or 3 months, the customer rating went up to an all-time high of about 98% or so. And that is where he started this whole process of applying it from tennis that he applied. Many of you, if you have seen the video of Molly being taught by him, and I was witness to his taking on a person who was absolutely never had the racket in their hand. Within 5 minutes, they were both volleying, 5 or 7 minutes. It is amazing the way he did it. And it was not about concentration. It was about asking them to focus on certain things which followed the rules of the game. So one of the things that you might like to look at as coaches when you are in the executive coaching space is try and work out, as against the rules of the game that we talked about earlier, what are the games that they play? All these people who are in leadership teams, they say that they are a team. They probably pretend to be a team when they are inside a cabin of 8 people or 10 people or a board meeting. But the moment come out, it is like the night of the long knives. Each one is trying to stab the other in the back. They are no longer collaborating. They are competing. And they're competing to the destruction of the company. And this is what I have seen in pretty much most companies that I work with. So first of all, the understanding that this is what the inner game that is going on here, where the potential of the group as a whole is being limited in performance by this interference, which is about the lack of trust with each other. And how do you make that happen? And that becomes then the goal of the coaching. That becomes, like Cindy said, the CC2 in terms of an agreement, and from there you move to the rest of the process. So anyway, I mean, these are some of the applications rather than just focusing on the words of what Tim Galway said. If you are to really take that and apply it in real life, the inner game model can be used extremely powerfully.
Saka, you are back, and I know that you wanted to make a contribution. Please go ahead. Oh, I think she's frozen again. Right, right? So yeah, she's frozen, right?
Yeah, I think so.
No, not working.
Let me try to reach her one-on-one and see if there's an issue.
Cindy, here it's Viji says that she has read the Inner Game of Work. Maybe you can get her. We can get her on the panel and ask her to share something. Let me see. What her views are on this.
In the meantime, I have a question for everybody. Please, there's Saka first. Let's hear from her. No. No. Oh, okay. She's not there. Vijay, I'll give you a moment to, I'll come to you in a moment. Let me ask everyone a question. So when we're coaching sometimes, right, or most of the time for some of us, there's always this inner game going on with self, you know, something showing up there, whether it's, I think this is the right question, or I'm not sure what to ask. We play this game with ourselves, but sometimes dampen our presence, and we lose some presence in the session or focus into the session. So what stands out for you, or what shows up for you that dampens your presence in the session, in any session with your clients? What shows up for you? Please type into the chat box so we get a good sense of what's going on for you that dampens your presence. Here, what kind of games are you playing with yourself? And Saka, because we got you back and we kept losing you, I hope now I can invite you to contribute, to say whatever you wanted to, and stay there while you're saying it. Don't go anywhere. Please go ahead. You're on mute.
I'm sorry, writers. Okay, Cindy, if I got you right, your question was, what comes up for me when being present with the client, right? Or was there?
No,
because
no, that's not for you. No, that's for all the participants. For you, I invited you to contribute. You wanted to say something. So please go ahead and say whatever you wanted to.
All right. When you say presence for the client, for me, it's in the first place, it's breathing, it's breath. And centralization.
Yeah, I think we've got some internet.
Yeah, Sharka, maybe you want to type it in?
Yeah, type it in, Saka.
Yeah.
Type the responses in.
My comes, that's it.
Yeah, I like that answer that's showing up now, you know, solution orientation holds us back. For many of us, we want to dive too quickly into solutions, right?
Mm.
And that dampens the presence between coach and client. What else, coaches, stands in your way of presence in a session?
So it's interesting, Cindy, I'm also reading Vijay's comment. Sometimes we are so hard at trying to not be distracted and keep, you know, our self one keeps saying, don't be distracted, which is a distraction in itself. You know, it takes our mind away from being fully present. So that was also interesting to read.
Yeah,
Gayatri
absolutely.
said, intuition helps to still the inner game.
It does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because intuition makes us pay attention to what's going on with us, within us, and how we bring that out, how we use that in our response to client.
Yeah.
Vijay, since you are here, I know you are not well and you've got a sore throat. So do you want to contribute verbally, or you can write some contributions into the chat? Either way, we're fine with it. Managing difficult emotions of the client. That's a good one. Bashkaran, that's good, yeah. Absolutely. And the client becomes too emotional, and sometimes we begin to wonder what we're going to do with that. Or how are we going to respond to that? So
I also hear something here, Cindy, and I want to hear from you. you know, somebody here, I think Gayatri it was, who spoke about one's intuition. Now, how do you see that play up when self one is really acting up?
So remind me what was self one now?
Sorry?
Remind me what was self one. What was
Self one
one
is your inner chatter, your judgment, your
Ego.
ego. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you know me well enough. I don't have much of that when I coach.
I mean, Priya,
So maybe,
your question and many of the others, what they have said, the whole thing happens when you sit on the coach's chair and you start thinking that you're a coach. And therefore you have
the
to
expert.
think the coach has to do. You are the expert or whatever. I mean, I remember when I was going through the coaching journey, and it happened during my mentoring with Cindy. So one of the things she said to me was that if you're not acting like a coach the rest of the time, you're perfectly fine. You are in mastery. So what happens when you become the coach? And that's what happens to many of us, because we think that we need to add value. We think that we have to be something to be able to deliver to the client. We have to watch the emotions. We have to make our intuition work. The moment you think about that way, nothing will work. But if you just disengage from it and trust the process, as you said, and trust yourself, and it'll happen. I think the single biggest destroyer of presence is the moment we think that we are the coach. And therefore, we need to behave the way what we think a coach should behave.
Yeah, the moment we feel entitled, right?
And that's exactly where I was, sorry.
Go ahead, Priya, go.
So that's exactly where I was coming from. So as long as self one plays up, you don't hear your intuition. It doesn't really show up at all. It's in that quietness that intuition really comes out, and that adds so much value to the client as well as the coaching process. Yeah.
But you're speaking to somebody on the chat about mindful practice, because even that takes a lot of practice to quieten the chatter or the ego, and that quietening process takes a lot of practice. Some of us only reach it when we get to mastery or into the mastery application, then we become more aware of it, right?
Yeah.
Sakya, you are back, right?
So we're
You can hear me?
Sharka is in and out.
No.
Are you back?
No.
For the moment, I am. I'm really sorry. It seems dropping off. So I haven't been able to catch all what you just said.
But you wanted to respond earlier on to something Ram said. Please respond to what you want to say.
I would like to come back to the book, and since Ram was following on the author and his own experience with the author, Mr. Gowi, I remembered that himself, Mr. Gowi, shared his experience with Inner Game. So I offer it to the listeners and maybe for some coaches, because what it did to Mr. Gowi when he invented or he just became practicing his inner game, he mastered it, right, in his tennis play. So you can imagine someone who quiets the mind, is totally the activity as such, and is really, so he mastered that activity. He was internally, he won. Let's say that he stopped enjoying with
Sharka, the line seems to be quite bad. Yeah. If you could type in, I think it would be better. So From the little I gathered, Ram, it was about whether you had an opportunity, Tim Galloway had an opportunity to share his experience in a game.
Okay, let me explain this very, very simply. One of the one of the exercises that he did with us was, apart from playing tennis, I think Sarka, I'll mute her because there's a problem with her sound. Now, they put what is called, many of you, if you're familiar, in golf, there is a kind of a putting stuff, which is like a long carpet kind of a stuff with a hole in it so that you can play. You can putt as an exercise. So there were 20 of us who were lined up and they put 20 of those. And Tim gave each one of us a golf club and a few golf balls. And the exercise was that first you concentrate and you practice your swing. There was somebody who knew about golf. Some of us had played golf before. So how do you putt? And then we tried. And then he said, now all of you stand there with your eyes closed. And you just, before that, you just see where the putting hole is and where you are standing, and you hit your ball. You would be amazed. The percentage of actually the balls going into the hole were far greater when your eyes were closed and the balls went in there than when you had your eyes open. So it is a very classic kind of, I mean, you can call it relaxed concentration, you can call it whatever you want. But the basic point that he was trying to make was, we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust our body. We don't trust our mind's capability. And then whatever we call the self-want, the ego, and so on, it works against us in many ways. So this was an extremely powerful experiment, and you try it for yourself. If any of you have access to a putting green, or even when you go into this thing, just close your eyes and take a golf ball and try to put it in and see how many times you're able to put it that way, rather than with tremendous conscious effort. You would find at worst, it may not make any difference. At best, you'll probably put more in the hole than you would with your eyes open. So that's a very subtle difference between what we call as the unconscious competence coming into play, instead of we are consciously trying to be competent. So that's a huge step forward.
So I'm going to take Ram's example and make it more coaching related. And I invite you all to please respond. We want to hear from you. It is important that we engage with you and that you engage back with us during the Learner webinars. So please type your response into the chat box to what I'm about to ask. And the question is, we're talking a lot about understanding self in a game and what exactly shows up in us. And the question to that is, what is the one thing that you'd like to do more of to become more masterful? What do you want to do more of so that you can become more masterful in coaching? Please type into the chat box. If you have to say two things, that's okay. One thing is better. Okay. Jason's nice. So while you're typing, I'll ask Priya. Priya, you're already masterful. You're an MCC. What's your thoughts on how we show up more masterful?
I think from my experience, it has been, you know, before the session, to just ground oneself in terms of saying, I'm emptying my mind and I'm being there all for the client. It's their time and space. So that helps a lot to quieten my S1. And once I'm in the session, it's totally just somebody else's space. It's not mine, you know, and just being there with them. I think it's really magical and truly synergized way of going through the process. I think somehow it just becomes very natural to travel the journey with the other person. So it's been a great experience whenever I've been able to quite an S1, and the mastery journey has taught me really how to be able to do that, because I'm not worrying too much about have I asked this, have I said this, you know, I'm just totally there for the client.
Yeah, lots of flow of what the client wants, right? Conversation. Yeah.
Totally.
Before we end, I just wanted to add this. I saw somewhere Anita had talked about something called a work triangle. I'm not sure whether she's referring to the same thing. One of the things that Timothy Calvey worked on for a long time with us is that there is a triangle which is performance, learning, and joy. He said all these three have to be together for anything to really happen in excellence. It's not merely the performance and the learning, but joy. And something I think Sharka ended with, have fun.
Have fun,
forget about all being mindless and so on and so forth. Just get into the coach chair and say, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be joyful. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to let my client enjoy. Because as far as I know, nobody ever died on a client's chair or a coach's chair.
Absolutely.
So it's not a life and death game. And very often, the whole problem is that coaches take it to be a life and death game. Oh, if we don't succeed in this, we are going to lose. No, you're not. Just have fun, lighten up. That's I think a famous lesson of Timothy Calvey, which we learn and which we often forget, unfortunately.
We're at the end of our time. Let's do some thank yous. Thank you everyone for your contributions and remaining so engaging. Ram, of course, thank you for adding more value onto the topic, especially with your experiences of meeting Tim Galloway. And Saka, it was a beautiful presentation and well presented too, so thank you for that.
Thanks.
Priya.
Thanks, Sharka. Thanks, Priya. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks all of you for being there.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Let's quieten our S1.
Let's have fun.
Yeah, let's have fun.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.